Hi, Danielle. I know this video is overdue. I got involved in some other things. Anyway, how safe are you? How safe am I? A lady I knew years ago once said something, and it just kind of jumped into my mind. She said, "You can't have heaven on earth." And that seems to apply here. It's, yes, we do live in a very unsafe world, but at the end of the day, I don't know what else we can have. Because if we lived in a world that was safe, if our lives were guaranteed, if our safety was guaranteed, there would be no reason to strive. I regret to think of life in those terms, but that lady was right. We cannot have heaven on earth. Going through a period of danger to obtain a victory. The victory is sweeter, and surviving the danger, and the victory is sweeter. So I think that there's a reward attached to this. If I've learned anything, you have to know the ground upon which you may one day fight. One thing I think a lot of people do that's a mistake is to make a display of their skills. These are my skills. This is my brand of self-defense. This is, if you do that to me, I'll do this to you. A show of power, flexing of muscle. And I don't think people realize what a mistake that is. It's a mistake for a couple of reasons. One, some people will just take that as a challenge. Okay, that's your skill, that's fine. I can defeat that skill. And now I have to do it because it's in my face. Some people just, they're looking for a brawl. And I think it weakens a person. I think to show your power, this is my skill, you're weakening yourself. One is weakening oneself. If it's a danger to me not to know my battleground, then it's also a danger to my opponent. If my opponent doesn't know anything about me, he doesn't know the ground. Why would I give him knowledge of his fighting ground? I'm not going to do that. There are certain rules you can't break. If you break them and you still win, you've won by a fluke, and you shouldn't have. I've come to respect the ground a little more. And that doesn't mean I won't take a stand on certain things in spite of certain risks. There's certain things I feel are very important, and then, I'll put myself in danger if it's necessary to stand up and say something that I think is right and that needs to be said. I'll say it. But sometimes, it's less a matter of right and wrong and more a matter of consequences. So if I do something of that nature, I have to be willing to live with the consequences. If I ignore the ground, the dangers that I know exist on that battleground, and I choose to proceed, I have to be willing to live with the consequences. It has to be important. That's why they say pick one's battles. Pick your battles. It's important because there are consequences to doing that, to picking any battle at all. And I notice that a lot of people don't pick them. There is a time to walk away from a fight, I believe, and there's a time to take a stand and not run at all. I just don't like to invite trouble. I'm not looking for trouble. What I found out with trouble, you can be sitting in your own home, minding your own business, and somehow trouble can find a way to find you. That's why I don't like to invite it, because it's there anyway. It'll come of its own accord, I'm afraid. I don't see the point in inviting it. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts on the subject. I think people talk about their skills too often. The way a person chooses to protect himself or herself, whatever that program is, that's that person's private program, privileged information. And I think people talk a little bit too much about it, and it's really private. That's your own business and not anyone else's. And whatever that program is, you have to be one with it. You can't wait until the emergency. It's like, it's like having a fire extinguisher in your home and you don't know how to use it. When the room's on fire, you're going to throw it in and shut the door. Either that or you're going to die trying to put out a fire when you should have used that extinguisher as an escape tool. You can't become familiar with these various tools when you have to use them. You have to be at one with these tools now, whether it's a fire extinguisher or whatever your means of self-defense. You have to be at one with that means. So it's completely you and you're completely it, so that you are not second-guessing yourself in the middle of the night in a moment of truth. That's something that you have to have automatic before that happens, and hopefully that won't happen. And sometimes I do wish it were safer. Sometimes terrible things happen because it's not safe. But I think it would be a much more miserable existence for each of us if we lived in a world where, safety was a guarantee. You don't impress me as somebody who's looking for that kind of guarantee anyway, but, you, the way you spoke did suggest that you were burdened with this issue, and I hope that's not the case. I want you to enjoy some life. Anyway. Okay, Danielle, those are my thoughts on the subject. If you find them of value, that's great. If you don't, throw them in the trash. That's okay. I'm just throwing my 2 cents in. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.